Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Triple Tap, a Hong Kong crime dramatic thriller from 2010 that stars Louis Koo and Daniel Wu. Derek Yee directs this spin-off to the film Double Tap, which was released back in 2000, and I reviewed that one just recently, so I figured I would review the sequel as well. Now, our lead character in this one is champion competitive marksman Kwan, played by Louis Koo. After winning a shooting competition, he drives by an armored van during a robbery. He sees a policeman in danger, uses his race gun to shoot and kill four of the bad guys. One of the robbers escapes, and the policeman luckily survives but is currently in a coma. Police investigation immediately begins, and the case is handled by a man named Chong, played by Daniel Wu, whom Ken knows from having recently beaten him in a shooting match. So the title of this movie is a little bit questionable, maybe even a little bit silly. Like, the double tap technique actually exists in real life, and it makes some kind of sense, right? Like, when you're shooting, you shoot twice, basically. And, I've looked this up online in recent days, and there is some validity to that technique in terms of the accuracy of the second shot being a little bit better when you double tap it. But regardless, it's something that actually exists in real life, and it makes some kind of sense. Also, it's probably enough to hit your target or actually kill someone in self-defense, right? From what I could gather, a triple tap is barely existent in reality. Like, I couldn't find much of anything about it. And it would likely represent an unnecessary overkill, right, if you're thinking about it. But in any case, it's a sequel. They wanted to make it a cool name. The first film was Double Tap. Let's call this movie Triple Tap. And that's probably how they came up with it. In any case, this movie has a similar opening to its predecessor, two proficient shooters in a competition, and it is difficult to figure out if either one of these lead characters is going to be a villain or not, at least during the earlier moments, and that's similar to the prior film. This also touches upon the taste for blood theme that I talked about in my review of Double Tap. However, the story here is a little bit different, alright, which is what you want in a sequel. You don't want the same exact thing again, right? So one thing I liked that they did in this is that Daniel Wu's character has like an admiration, a certain sense of respect for Louis Koo's character. Because Daniel Wu loses to him in the shooting competition in the opening moments, and he's chomping at the bit for a rematch because he thinks he could beat him in a competition. And he welcomes the challenge and is really looking forward to the rematch. And, Wu's character seems very by the book as a cop. He goes through the procedures as necessary and how he approaches things, but his admiration for a potential suspect to a crime could cloud his objectivity, and they play on that a little bit in the film, and that's a very strong undercurrent to this. Another thing that's a little bit different in this film is that there are multiple bad guys in this, and they each have a different perspective on how to go about their criminal acts. Basically one of them is more ruthless than the other, and that plays out during the course of the film as well. So overall, I did like the story and the pacing. It kept me interested. Now, the script does rely on some coincidences early on in order to kind of set up its premise, but the writing is pretty good, generally speaking. Dialogue is pretty effective. The courtroom scene, good questioning by the prosecutor, and that's one example that comes to mind. And the back and forth conversations that you have between our two lead characters are pretty good as well. They even tap into some psychology. Now, this is not incredibly deep or insightful stuff, but it's entertaining to watch. Of course, it does help that I do like both of the lead actors here. I think they're both entertaining to watch at the very least. This is actually probably one of Daniel Wu's better performances. Not an actor that I would consider to be elite by any means, but there's just something about him. I like him, and he seems very comfortable in this role. Louis Koo's acting, very tempered in this. Almost too much so. I feel like he should have expressed a slightly wider range of emotion throughout the course of the movie, given all the stuff that happens in this. In all honesty, this is not one of my favorite performances by him. I think he comes off a little bit too flat in this. But still, his interactions with Woo are pretty good, especially near the end. There are some pretty cool moments. Supporting cast is fun as well. Li Bingbing, very good actress, and she's given a little bit of meat to work with in this, which helps. Alex Fong returns from the first movie in a supporting role here. Chapman Toe plays an important character that shows up. And then we have Charlene Choi, one half of Twins, who's given the role of, like, Koo's romantic love interest, but her character, extremely underdeveloped, almost completely unnecessary to the plot. You could have written her out of this movie, and it probably would not have mattered much, so that's kind of a flaw. Almost no impact in that. But I think if I were to identify the biggest difference between Triple Tap and Double Tap, outside of the actors and some story choices, is that this movie is more of a dramatic thriller the entire way through. You know, like Double Tap started off kind of like a dramatic thriller, and then it turned into more like an action thriller. This movie's dramatic thriller start to finish. So I would not classify this as an action movie. It's a few short bits of gun violence, but that's it. So, I would say, though, that the action bits are good, but they're pretty short. And some of that has to do with the director here. Some of the non-action stuff can carry the film, and the director's a reason for that, Derek Yee. Now, I followed this guy fairly closely for a number of years during the 2000s. Some of his other directing credits are Viva Erotica, Lost in Time, One Night in Mongkok, Drunk, Protege, and Shinjuku Incident. Pretty good filmography, some interesting stuff there. In recent years, however, his production has kind of tapered off, been less consistent, and a few of the films he's directed looked less interesting, so a few of his recent films I haven't even watched or seeked out. But still, I think Triple Tap is nicely directed, and it'll give you a feel for what this guy's good at. So overall, I recommend Triple Tap, and I seem to like this movie a little bit more than the typical person who watches it. So just be wary of that. But I do think it makes a nice double feature with its predecessor. Just do not go into this expecting a full-throttled Hong Kong action flick, because that's not what you're going to get. It's not that. But I do enjoy it. It's currently available on Hi-Ya, the streaming service. And if you have seen this one, let me know what you think. Some people think Double Tap's like significantly better than this, which I don't really agree with. But if you've seen both of these films, let me know what you think. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.